Once upon a time in the world of Formula One, there were some rule changes that got everyone talking and even led to some good-natured banter among the drivers. Let's take a fun and playful journey through the F1 rulebook and see how some of the sport's biggest stars managed to shake things up. Our story begins with Max Verstappen, the young and fearless driver who took the F1 world by storm. Max had a knack for pushing the boundaries, and he did just that early in his career. Back in 2016, during the Japanese Grand Prix, Max made a move that forced a rule change. He aggressively moved under braking to block Lewis Hamilton, preventing him from overtaking. The Mercedes crew wasn't too pleased with Max's tactics, but Max argued that he hadn't been penalized at the time, so he thought he was in the clear. Little did he know that his actions would lead to a rule change. As word got around, other drivers chimed in with their displeasure. The FIA, the governing body of F1, couldn't ignore the uproar, and they decided to step in. They introduced a new rule stating that any moves made during braking, which required the trailing driver to make a sudden maneuver or caused an irregular direction shift, would be investigated. This rule became known as the Verstappen rule, a badge of honor for Max. But that's not where the fun ends. Another rule change in the same season shook things up, and this time it had an impact on the championship battle. The FIA decided to clamp down on pit-to-car radio communication as they felt that engineers on the pit wall were providing too much assistance to the drivers. However, this rule became a topic of debate after Nico Rosberg encountered a transmission failure during the British Grand Prix. He found himself stuck in 7th gear and losing ground to none other than Max Verstappen, who was running in 3rd. Rosberg radioed the Mercedes team for help, and they suggested trying different settings. In a moment of desperation, Rosberg asked if he should shift through the gears, to which he received the reply, "Yes, shift to 8th gear quickly." This exchange between Rosberg and his engineers was seen as a rule breach, and he ended up losing positions and championship points. It was a tough break for Nico, but it highlighted the complexities of the new radio ban rule. As the season unfolded, more rules came into play. In 2021, F1 issued a rule limiting the speed at which various parts of a pit stop could be completed. Red Bull, known for their lightning-fast pit stops, wasn't thrilled about this rule. Helmut Marko, Red Bull's advisor, even accused Mercedes of being behind the rule change, claiming they were trying to slow Red Bull down. Toto Wolff, Mercedes team principal, defended his team, stating that they were inquiring with the FIA about a safety mechanism. The pit stop rule certainly added a new dimension to the competition between the teams. Now let's talk about Max Verstappen again. The guy seemed to have a knack for getting rules named after him. In a daring move, Max would position his car alongside a competitor's just before a safety car restart. He did it against Leclerc and famously at the 2021 Abu Dhabi GP against Lewis Hamilton, just before that nail-biting final lap restart. It was a risky move, as it increased the chances of accidents. But Max was fearless, and he forced the FIA's hand. The race director clarified the regulation change, stating that maneuvers like Max's before a restart were now forbidden. Max Verstappen, rule changer extraordinaire. But what makes Max truly special is that he holds a record that can never be broken. Just 3 days after his 17th birthday, Max made his official Grand Prix debut. However, his early career antics and rapid rise forced the FIA to raise the age limit for F1 debutants to 18. That means if the rule never changes, Max Verstappen will forever be the youngest driver ever to make their Formula One debut. Now that's a cool distinction. But Max isn't the only one who left his mark on the rulebook. Ayrton Senna, a legendary figure in F1 history, was also involved in a rule change that had a profound impact on the sport's future. Back in 1988, Senna and Alain Prost were McLaren teammates and fierce rivals. They were the top 2 drivers with the most victories, but the championship went to Senna despite Prost having more total points. The reason? The F1 scoring system at the time only considered the top 11 races. So Prost had 87 of his 105 points counted, while Senna had 90 out of 94. This quirky scoring system was eventually scrapped, making Ayrton Senna the last world champion under that system. What a champ! Now, let's shift our attention to Lewis Hamilton, a driver known for his speed and his style. Lewis not only forced rule changes, but he also managed to get an exemption from one rule due to a safety concern. At the start of the 2022 season, the FIA tightened the rules regarding non-compliant undergarments and jewelry worn by drivers. They were worried that these items beneath a driver's flame-proof clothing could increase the risk of burn injuries. Lewis wasn't too thrilled about this rule and even said he'd be willing to skip the Miami Grand Prix if the ban was enforced. He argued that he had been wearing jewelry and a nose stud for years without any issues. He even had a doctor's letter to back up his claim. Ultimately, the FIA had to exempt Hamilton from the rule, and he got to keep his bling. But that wasn't the only time Lewis had a hand in rule changes. In the 2022 F1 season, the FIA put a lot of emphasis on downforce for all F1 cars. Unfortunately, this emphasis led to a phenomenon called porpoising, which made the cars difficult to handle. Hamilton even suffered a back injury during the Baku race due to porpoising, and he needed assistance to exit his car. Several drivers, including Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris, spoke out about this issue. However, the FIA's rules required at least 8 out of 10 teams to vote in favor of changing the rules. Hamilton's plight, though, made the FIA step in to address the physical distress caused by porpoising. The midseason change didn't sit well with all the teams, but safety was the FIA's top concern. Safety is indeed a key factor in rule changes, and sometimes it's not just about one driver's preferences. When Max Verstappen celebrated a race victory in his own unique way, the FIA decided it was time for another rule change. According to F1 sporting regulations, any active celebration had to meet specific conditions. It had to be performed safely, not endanger other drivers or officials, not question the car's legality, and not delay the podium ceremony. Max had done a burnout after winning the 2021 Styrian Grand Prix, and he had adhered to all 3 conditions. However, FIA's race director at the time, Michael Masi, made it clear that such burnout celebrations would no longer be tolerated. Max may not have broken the rule, but sometimes F1 drivers stretch the rules just a bit too far. Speaking of stretching the rules, let's talk about Michael Schumacher. After coming out of retirement, Schumacher raced for Mercedes and found himself in a wheel-to-wheel battle with Lewis Hamilton during the 2011 Monza race. Schumacher defended aggressively, making more than one change in direction, which forced Hamilton to take drastic actions and jump over the grass. Surprisingly, Schumacher's aggressive driving was within the limits of the rules, but it left Hamilton fuming. The incident prompted an FIA review, and the governing body clarified that a driver could leave the racing line and return, but only if they left a car's width of space and made only one change of direction. It was a lesson for everyone that the rules of engagement could be both strict and tricky in F1. Now, here's the fun part. Some drivers couldn't resist taking playful jabs at each other. One driver even called Lewis Hamilton an idiot, and another claimed that he still didn't know how to drive. But who were these drivers, and what did they really think about Hamilton? Well, we'll leave that juicy gossip for you to discover in the video linked below. And there you have it, a playful and enjoyable journey through the world of F1 rule changes, led by some of the sport's most iconic drivers. Whether it's Max Verstappen making rules with his fearless driving or Lewis Hamilton adding a touch of style to the sport, F1 is never short of surprises and excitement. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on more fascinating F1 stories and updates.